Welcome to Traveling with Glenn, a series of bicycle touring adventures designed to educate, to entertain, and to inspire the viewer. I am your host, Glenn Davis. Today's program is the PacificCrest Bicycle Trail, and you are about to view Part 1. From Honolulu, I flew to Vancouver, British Columbia, and bicycled to Victoria, where I spent a week preparing for my next adventure, the mountainous PacificCrest Bicycle Trail. Victoria, population 80,000, is the capital city of British Columbia. There is a very British look to Victoria. This is a view of Inner Harbor and Parliament, built from 1893 to 1897. The Empress Hotel opened in 1908. It has 477 rooms. It was built for Canadian Pacific's steamship line. We see another view of Inner Harbor. Government House, built in 1957, is the official residence of the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. Craig de Rock Castle, built in 1890, was the family residence of coal baron Robert Dunsmuir and his wife Joan. Metropolitan United Church of Canada. City Hall. Beacon Hill Park Gardens. A different view of Parliament. We are on the ferry from Victoria to Port Angeles, Washington. You are looking at Puget Sound and Mount Baker, elevation 10,781 feet, which is an active volcano. The Baker Bowl ski area recorded a world's record snowfall for a season in 1999 when 95 feet of snow fell. It would take us 38 years to get that much snow. We are beginning our tour of the Cascade Range, which extends from southern British Columbia to northern California. Welcome to the Pacific Ring of Fire. Unlike their tamer cousins, the shield volcanoes of Hawaii, these are stratovolcanoes, which can erupt with extreme violence. Unlike Hawaii, which is in the center of the Pacific Plate, North American volcanoes are in a collision zone between the Pacific and North American plates. The Pacific Plate is being subducted beneath the North American plate. As this happens, the rocks and soil of the Pacific Plate are turned to magma, or molten rock, many miles beneath the Earth's crust. The magma has more explosive gases than the Hawaiian volcanoes. Added to this, vast amounts of seawater pour in, and this water is converted to steam. If enough steam pressure is allowed to build, then think what happens to a steam boiler when the pressure becomes too great. This is the start of the PacificCrest Bicycle Trail, an arduous trek which spans the length of the Cascade Range, the Sierra Nevada Mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains, and San Bernardino Mountains. I bicycled over more than 36 passes and summits in the 2,600 miles. Temperatures ranged from near freezing in northern Washington to 105 degrees in California. Mount Rainier is the tallest mountain in the Cascade Range and potentially the most dangerous mountain in America. And this is a view of some of the lush rainforest in northern Washington. Another view of Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is a huge mountain, and should it erupt, many population centers, including the cities of Seattle and Tacoma, are within its range. More than 1 million people would be at risk. Douglas firs can reach heights of 200 to 250 feet and grow to 5 to 8 feet in diameter. A mature Douglas fir can produce enough wood to build a 5-room house. This is a slug's eye view of a Douglas fir. To give you an idea of how deadly the volcanoes of the Pacific Ring of Fire can be, consider Krakatoa in Indonesia. And we see more views of Mount Rainier. When Krakatoa erupted in 1883, it produced the loudest sound ever heard by humans. The noise from the eruption carried nearly halfway around the world. Krakatoa erupted with the explosive power of 13,000 atomic bombs. And more views of Mount Rainier. Tower Rock is a volcanic outcropping which resisted glacial action. And this is a look at an old Douglas fir that was cut many years ago, and you can see that it is covered with mosses and lichens and surrounded by the rainforest in northwestern Washington state. Can anyone tell me what mountain we're viewing? This is what Mount St. Helens used to look like. With its classic symmetrical cone, it was one of the most beautiful mountains in the world. Spirit Lake was a paradise for boaters, fishermen, and swimmers. The shore had many campgrounds, youth camps, and private lodges, which accommodated tourists for many years. The region had many miles of hiking trails through the lush forests. But all that changed on the morning of May 18, 1980. The eruption began with a massive landslide which tore away the north flank of Mount St. Helens. That was followed by a lateral blast which caused a pyroclastic flow of 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. A pyroclastic flow combines superheated gases and lava which kills everything in its immediate path. The flow melts ice and snow, incinerates trees, collects soil, rocks, and everything else in its way. Some of the debris was dumped into Spirit Lake, which caused the lake level to rise by 200 feet. By this time, the air temperature was 600 to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. More debris blocked the lake's outlet, and the rest went careening down North Fork Toutle River. The flood swept away rocks, trees, roads, bridges, motor vehicles, homes, and people. It was estimated that the current reached 80 to 100 miles per hour. Eventually, the debris was deposited in the Columbia River, where it disrupted shipping for months. Water temperature in May is about 45 degrees, yet even far downstream and late in the day, the water temperature was 90 degrees. Onlookers reported fish leaping from the river to cool off. This is Spirit Lake, a scene of total devastation. Harry Truman, an elderly man who had operated an inn at Spirit Lake since the 1940s, refused to evacuate and died instantly. Note that years later, dead trees are still floating on the lake's surface, where once there were boats. Another scene of total devastation. This is Mita Lake, where several people died. Life is slowly returning. Another scene of complete devastation. The force of the blast was estimated at 250 miles per hour. Is it any wonder that 234 square miles of forest were blown down? Even several miles from Mount St. Helens, the air temperature was 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It was reported that pitch boiled out of the trees. David Johnston, a scientist with the United States Geological Survey, was stationed 6 miles northwest of the mountain when it erupted. Moments later, he was dead. One of 57 people who died in the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Later in the day, Mount St. Helens sent a cloud of ash, cinders, and pumice 80,000 feet into the atmosphere. The jet stream picked it up and carried it eastward. The city of Yakima was engulfed in the ash cloud. Street lights went on at noon. People covered their faces with surgical masks and scarves. The ash cloud circled the earth every 15 days. The miner's car. The 4 occupants of this car were visiting friends at nearby Mita Lake. All were killed in the eruption. The paint was boiled off the car. The dashed line indicates the shape of Mount St. Helens cone prior to May 18, 1980. The eruption removed 1,300 feet from the summit. This is Mount St. Helens today. As severe as the destruction was, it should be kept in mind that the eruption of Mount St. Helens was relatively minor. And another view of Mount St. Helens as it looks today. And more of the ferns in the lush forests of Washington. This is Mount Adams, elevation 12,276 feet, another active volcano. We are now in Oregon. This illustrates the damage that winter storms with their powerful winds can do. The campground was closed, but that didn't stop me from walking my bike around the gate and spending the night. Mount Hood is an active volcano and the highest point in Oregon at 11,239 feet. And we'll see several views of Mount Hood. And this is bear grass. And more views of Mount Hood. And Mount Hood and Timothy Lake. Mount Washington, elevation 7,794 feet, is an ancient lava plug that remains after glaciation. The Three Sisters are all 10,000 feet plus. From north to south, they are extinct inactive, and active. South Sister is an active volcano in the Cascade Range. This is a few-flowered shooting star. Elk Lake and Bachelor Butte, elevation 9,060 feet. Deschutes River and Purple Lupin. Diamond Lake and Mount Thielsen, elevation 9,182 feet, which is an example of a Matterhorn. There is a famous mountain in Switzerland called the Matterhorn, but any mountain carved by 3 glaciers, giving it a triangular solid shape, is called a Matterhorn. The last ice age shaped the Cascade Range. This is a good example of how trees are able to withstand heavy snow, having flexible limbs which bend downward. This is Crater Lake National Park. From the earliest settlers and trappers to today's tourists, the first thing which everyone notes is the amazing blueness of the lake. Crater Lake is 6 miles across at its widest point, 20 miles in circumference, and up to 1,932 feet deep, the deepest lake in the United States. Another unusual feature of this lake is that cliffs drop sharply down to it from as much as 2,000 feet above the water surface. With nearly all lakes, the land declines gently to the water. So why is Crater Lake different? Well, imagine that the sides continue to rise. Where they meet, they form a cone, a volcano. Crater Lake is the remains of Mount Mazama, an ancient volcano which is estimated to have been 12,000 feet high and which erupted violently nearly 7,000 years ago. Mount Mazama ejected 200 times as much material as Mount St. Helens. What is now Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alberta, and Saskatchewan was heavily blanketed with ash. Blocks of pumice 14 feet in diameter were blown 20 miles distant. So much material was ejected from Mount Mazama that its flanks collapsed in on itself, leaving a huge caldera, a Spanish word meaning cauldron. To the native people living in the region, the eruption of Mount Mazama must have been a terrifying spectacle. The island is Wizard Island. It was a vent of Mount Mazama. In time, rain and snow created Crater Lake. Although it has no inlet or outlet, the water level remains fairly constant because seepage and evaporation offset precipitation. Incidentally, if you are a snow lover, it might interest you to know that Crater Lake receives an average annual snowfall of 50 feet. Vide Falls is 115 feet high. This flower is called blue-eyed grass.